Konnichiwa and welcome to Small Games on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Carlos and today we're going to be looking at painting some Sohei Monks. Now we've recently had the new Sohei sets going on sale, or on pre-order sorry, at the Test1 website through Grey for Now Games. Let's have a look at those. There you go, that's all looking fantastic. Now one of the issues I always had with some of the Warlord sets was some of them, I think it was about half of them, were pretty much just your basic plastic set with maybe a special character and a head swap, but not anymore. That doesn't seem to be the way they're going with these, especially with them all being in metal, and they've all been looking fantastic so far, and these are no exception. Right, well, with these on the way, I've decided to carry on with the Sohei Monks I've already got. I'm looking at the North Star figures set today, that were originally for the Ronin game, and yeah, I've painted a few of them already for one of my previous battle reports that you might have seen, but let's just have a look at one of the finished articles. As I say, so we're looking at completing today, something to that effect, and yeah, with the new ones on the way, I've got these 3 left to do, so I thought I'd get those done now, as it's Japanese July on the Facebook group. Test of Honour, the Samurai Miniatures game, as I said before. If you're not a member, get yourself on there and have a look, well worth it. Lots of great content, including Graham Davies involved, and yep, certainly worth a look. Right, so here we go. So first things first, over the grey undercoat, I'm going to add a layer of black to all the armour and weapons areas. That's going to be followed by a dry brush of Skaven Blight Dinge over the top. So with that little bit done to start with, it might seem a bit unusual doing the darkest colour first like that, but what I like to do is apply the black, then the highlight to that. As I'm dry brushing, obviously can be a bit untidy, so I like to just do that first so it doesn't get over everything, and then I'm going to be adding a layer of shade over the top of that to kind of take away the dusty look of the highlight and blend it all, the dry brush highlight, and then blend it all in together, which we'll talk about that when we come to it. Right, so next up we're going to add some the first base coats. I'm going to be using some Pugman's Glow for the flesh. Of the areas of clothing, we're going to be using Avalon Sunset on the yellow, over Dakota Orange for the orange, funnily enough, and for the areas of white I'm going to be using some Rakarth Flesh. Pot's coming to the end of its time now, but still a bit of usable paint in there, so I'm not going to waste that. So with those recurring colours all completed, I'm now going to be adding a few of the little finishing touches to the base coats. Here I'm applying a drop of Castellan green, or any kind of camo green, to the trousers of the senior monk. Then we're going to be moving on to the wooden areas. In this instance it's only going to be the musket of this this monk, and we're doing that in Rhinox hide. Then we're back onto the senior monk, who has his gold trim on some of his armour, and for that I'm going to be using Balthazar gold. I'm also going to be using this to add a few little details, which I'll show you shortly, as well as some of the more prominent areas like the fin on his helmet. Then finally, sticking with the metallics, I'm just going to do the metal areas in lead belcher. Right, so that's all the base coats complete. Now, back in 1997, working on my first batch of Blood Angels, I would have been happy to call these done, but no more. We're going to add some washes, and to start with, I'm going to add a bit of Reikland Flesh Shade to the areas of skin. So there are some large areas of skin on these models, which this will sink into nicely. I'm using a bit of a sort of smaller, tattier brush, as it's a little more detailed areas. So this Reikland Flesh Shade will also be good for the areas of orange if you wanted a slightly more pristine look. However, I'm going to be completing those in the next stage. So this is going to be going over pretty much all areas apart from the metal, and this is that's the gun metal. And for this I'm using a 50-50 mix of Lamian Medium and a Grax Earth Shade. Now you can do this with water and a Grax Earth Shade, but I just prefer using the Lamian Medium because I think it gives it a better consistency. You may also need to do a couple of layers, but it depends, you know, how dark you want it. I don't want it too dark because I want this to be you know, this and then the details, and then we're done. This is also going on to the areas of black that we did earlier with the dry brushed highlight, and this will bring the dry brushing neatly together and take away sort of the dusty effect that you normally get with that. Also, because I've watered this down, if a little bit of it does get, it allows me to do it quite quickly, because if a little bit of this does get onto a rogue bristle there, if a little bit of this does get onto the skin, for example, that we've already done, it won't really have too much of an effect. What it'll do, it'll just sort of darken the area between the sort of flesh area and the other piece we're doing, which will just sort of add to a nice, almost like a nice border to it. Lastly, with respect to shading anyway, I'm going to be adding a bit of the Nuln Oil to the areas of metal and to this to the dark brown to the wood. This is going to be used sparingly, so I don't darken everything too much. But that's going to be good. And once again, if it goes into the little sort of areas around that, that's not the end of the world, because they're the bits we want a bit of a shadow on anyway. And we'll get a bit on the metal itself. This I'm using straight out of the pot, but I am also trying to get good coverage. So once I've finished this, we'll be moving on to the next phase, which will be some highlighting, but I am going to keep the bolt of Nuln Oil out. The reason why will be apparent later on. Okay, so now first batch of layers, or details in some cases, and we're going to be adding some Cadian Flesh Tone to the areas of skin. Again, I'm using the smaller layer brush for this. I don't want to get into too many recesses, though I do still want to give it some decent coverage. It's going to be quite sort of maybe stark, I'd say, on the head, but we are going to be doing something about that in a moment. On the very top. So once that's complete, I'm going to be adding some edge highlights to the folds on the yellow material, and for that I'm going to be using Uriel yellow. This will be followed by an application of Fire Dragon Bright to the orange fabric. And we'll have a little bit of pallid witch flesh to the areas of white fabric. This will also include the flights of the arrows here and the skirting underneath. So looking at the senior monk, I'm going to add a highlight of Lauren Forest to his trousers. Into the areas of gold around the trim of his armour and on his headdress. I'm adding a Gehenna's gold, just along the edges and a bit more on the fin itself. And moving on to the next figure, I'm going to be applying a bit of watered down scrag brown to the musket. To the wooded area, that is. And once that's dried, I'm going to make an application of iron breaker to the areas of metal. So now I'm going to be adding absolute edge highlight of Kislev flesh to the absolute tips of all skin areas. So the absolute final bits of detail on the senior monk, and add a bit of Strachan green on the absolute edges on the trousers, where the light's going to catch the most. And for the absolute edges of the golden armour, I'm going to be doing a edge highlight of Auric Armour Gold, just to bring those little details out. And the final little bit we're going to do is add a little bit of what is a 50-50 mix of scrag brown and Bala brown, just around some of the random bits on the musket, just to give a bit of something to the wood effect. I'm not going to do this linear, I'm just going to do a few little sort of dots and dashes here and there, so that you can see almost like there's a bit of a grain running through it. add a little bit more Barlow Brown into this, so you can see it come out a bit more. And once this is done, that'll be the base colours complete. Well, the main colours completed, and we'll be moving on to the basing, and then these models are ready for the tabletop. So there we go, with those all finished minus the base. Those were a fun little quick and easy scheme to do. As I say, on most of my videos, these aren't going to win any painting awards, but it does get them on the tabletop, which for the vast majority of us is the most important thing. So Ryan, so final thing to do is do the bases. I know everyone's going to have their own way of doing that, but what I'm going to use is a bit of Sterling Mud for the main colour, a bit of Baneblade Brown to highlight that, a little bit of a bit of Steel Legion Drab around the rim of the base, and then it'll just be some static grass and other little bits of foliage to finish those off. I'm going to do that now, and I'll be right back. And with those bases all completed, it's time to add them to the tabletop. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing those, and I'll be look forward to getting my new delivery very soon and cracking on with those. Also on the painting table, I've got some mounted samurai I'll be doing next, so hopefully we'll be having a look at those in the near future. We'll be back soon with more content for this or any other games you might be interested in. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.